Welcome everybody. Really appreciate your time this afternoon. I would guess that most of you are in the US time zone. So I think when we booked this, we probably did pick it at 4 p.m., but with the daylight savings, didn't factor that one in. So we'll definitely get that one sorted for the next webinar next month. But this will be recorded and we'll be able to send it out to you as well. So really, for those that have joined, I think you've got yourself in a bit of a hot seat here, which is super exciting because you are going to be listening to Sam, who is my MSP's GM of sales. And really, you couldn't get any better person in terms of the sales side of growing an MSP to listen to and get some gold nuggets from in terms of his experience. And that's generally what we look for out of our webinars, is that you can watch it and take away one amazing thing that can help you improve your business in some way, shape, or form. So with that said, super keen to get started. I'll first, for those of you that aren't aware of Invarosoft, I've just got a couple of slides to explain who we are. So Invarosoft started out its life as a customer experience platform, but we've now turning ourselves more into a unified MSP platform. And it's all designed to help you deliver the future of IT support. And the reason why it's unified is because we now do quite a lot of things with vCIO, CX, CSAT, and all these different things. And eNerds is the MSP we're going to be hearing about today, and that's what I started way back in 2000, and we've managed to scale the business to 10 million in revenue and still growing. And along that journey, that's where we built some customer experience technology to get away from the Nokia mouse pad sticker with your email phone experience, and we thought, let's give customers a modern customer experience. We're definitely in an app economy now, and we wanted to do that. But we did that a long time ago, 13 years ago, and decided along that journey to commercialize that technology and help other MSPs improve their overall customer experience. So the problems that we generally help you guys with is you want to get away from that Nokia old-fashioned analog customer experience, get to the new modern digital iPhone experience in that sense. We really do help a lot with the vCIO process, helping you, and you'll learn a little bit about that today, actually, with the way we do things. And it'll be good to hear Sam's take on what we've been doing. But we focus on compliance and sales. Most tools and most people just focus on the compliance side of it. Productivity, the MSPs come to us because they're like, I just don't get the right ticket information. I want to speed up that whole process of support. So we definitely help there. The next two are kind of closely aligned: increasing stack costs and too many vendors to manage. Because we do quite a lot of tools, you are able to now start consolidating your tool set, and that's really where we're going as a platform. And slow revenue growth, you're going to learn a lot about that today. So this is where you're finding that you're not maybe converting as many new business deals as you'd like. And that's where people are looking to deliver a more modern customer experience so they can use that to differentiate your services. We'll cover that topic today. And the solution that we've got is this unified software platform. So now we've got the one platform, 5 key products. So your customer experience, vCIO, CSAT, scheduling, which is coming out soon. I'm letting you know. So it's not quite there yet, but it's coming. So if you've heard of TimeZest, it's almost out the door. You'll be able to do that in our platform. And then the warranty lookups as well. That's coming as well. So super excited. So we've got the 5 key platforms. And then you can see on the right there, huge amount of tool sets and tools that you can use, from web forms for onboarding and offboarding, live chat, identity security, push alerts, all these cool things. And what are we doing with all of that is really, as I say, trying to help you deliver the future of IT support experience. So getting off the old way of phone and email, and really in our world, we think emails, it doesn't need to be there. When you speak to customers, you can say, if it's urgent, you call. If it's not, use the client portal app and portal itself, and it works really well. You should be getting about 50 to 60% of your tickets through a solution like this, and it's all about just turning that off. You don't actually turn it off. You just tell the customer that's no longer supported, and they don't really care because they just want something easy. But now you're getting all the right ticket information and you're giving them much better visibility. And that seems to be the optimal way moving forward of your support channels in that sense. And so some of the tools we'll be working on, we will also be doing backup monitoring. vCIO assessments will be adding to our vCIO platform. push ticket updates, which is sort of little pop-ups when the ticket's been updated on their end, dashboards, AI and automation, and of course, SMS broadcasting and security. So lots of things coming to the Invarosoft platform. All right, without further ado, let's get started. So I might get Sam to turn on his screen and microphone. Sorry, I'm trying to multitask and letting people into the webinar. Sam, welcome. Good
Good
to have
morning, good
you on.
afternoon.
Exactly. Another Australian accent. I'm sure most of the people on this call probably are from Northern America. So now you're going to get a double whammy of Australian accents. Technically, Sam is way more Australian than I am. I'm actually from New Zealand, so I could try and put that accent on to confuse you even more. But welcome, mate. Good to have you, and really looking forward to digging in and finding out all the things you've learned over these last few years of helping scale eNerds as our MSP. So just to get started, it'd be good for the guys just to I like that huge picture of you there. I just wanted to embarrass you more than I ordinarily do. But it'd be good. I've written it here in terms of your background, but it'd be nice just to get it from the horse's mouth. Maybe you could give the listeners and viewers a bit of an overview of your experience and prior to coming to eNerds.
Yeah, so I was the IT manager for the Four Seasons in Sydney. A well-established hotel chain that many of you will resonate with. And then I transitioned into Fuji Xerox, and that's where I learnt my sales sort of approach and engaging with the clients and really trying to work out their pain points. So that was a great transition from IT into sales, and then I joined the eNerds team 12 years ago, and I've kind of blended those two learnings together. So, and it's been a fantastic ride since then.
Perfect. I might actually touch on that because a lot of people, a lot of MSPs, you see it in the forums everywhere. They're like, "Oh, I'm thinking of hiring a salesperson. What sort of experience should I be looking for?" And actually, I saw it on Reddit the other day. Actually, they were like, "Oh, I've tried to hire a couple and it hasn't worked out. What's worked out for you?" And I was talking. I'd posted something about the fact that in actual fact, people that come from the printing industry tend to be quite a good fit because you've had the experience of A, dealing with SMBs, of which most of us are dealing with, and
Yep.
B, there's obviously a technology element to that. So, what are your thoughts? Do you think that people from the printing industry or anyone with B2B is sort of a good starting point for MSPs thinking about hiring a salesperson?
Yeah, B2B is probably the main thing, and just understanding that sales cycle for particularly depending on the size of the business, and just understanding what are their trigger points. And so quite early on, it's pretty vital to just try and get it out of their head. Why am I here? Like, why have you picked up the phone? Why have you started this journey to test the market, and really get those to the best of your ability, depending on whether you use a notepad or a digital format. Try and use their vernacular. Try and use their words, because what you'll find is when you start repeating their words back to them, they're like, "Oh wow, this guy's really listening to me." So that's just a really simple tool that if any of you aren't using those sort of tactics, just really keep pushing them. It's like, how do you get them to walk you through their day, and particularly from the end user experience, from their staff, what systems do they use? You may uncover a bit of a uh, what's the right word? I was going to say shadow IT issue, and then start picking up on those little tricks and traits of, okay, so let's try and pull it all together. So just keep asking questions in that first instance. Don't be afraid to just keep drilling down, and be obvious about it, and just say, "Hey, I'm going to keep pestering you until I've got my mind around where you're at." And I find that really helps from the
And
get-go.
a lot of those skills you did learn at Fuji Xerox because it's a
Correct. Yeah.
temptation for MSPs to look to the vendors that they work with, vendors or distributors even, because to be honest, any MSP, that's another thing you'll see online, is they complain all the time about vendors, of which of course Invarosoft is one, but hopefully we're not too pestery, is that they're just ruthless and they're just chase you down like a dog. But those salespeople are in the channel, and it is slightly different. A vendor of a software product working with another technology business in that sense. The sales skills you learn there is not what I believe you're talking about, is it, Sam? Like being able to talk to an accounting firm and a law firm or a manufacturing or a non-profit, like that's the skill set of a sales executive that
Yeah,
you
look,
should be
ideally,
looking for, rather than just vendor to vendor or vendor to kind of supplier experience in that sense.
yeah, 100%. And I think over time, particularly as you may focus on some verticals or you may not, but any learnings from those verticals. I picked up a call the other day from a recruitment firm of which we support many, and there's a kind of stack that recruiters use, and so just throwing out, oh, you're using these, you throw out the top 3 or 4 CRM systems in the recruitment vertical, and they it already builds trust from the outlet that you kind of have a sense of what their industry is and their challenges. So those little tips along the way, just sliding those little 1%ers in and building that trust quite instantly through nothing more than just kind of having a high level understanding of their industry and their challenges, does get you through quite quickly.
Perfect. So, well, let's get stuck into some of the Q&A. So I've obviously set up a few questions here that we'll both discuss. So the first one is thoughts on scaling an MSP. One of the things that I always say is that at the end of the day, the MSP model is actually not that complicated, and I do think some people make it a little more complicated than it needs to be. And the reason for that is that most founders of the MSP of MSPs out there are technical, which is awesome. And so you do get sucked into the technical side of the business and the running of it. But if you were just to try and stay super high level, I've always sort of said, look, it's actually about just signing up more clients dollar wise than you lose every year. And if you really want to grow, I mean, that's pretty much the main thing. So what are your thoughts in terms of how we look at signing up deals, losing deals, like churn, dashboarding and reporting and those types of things? What are the things that you've noticed in terms of scaling and how we've been able to do that?
Yeah, I think there is quite an element of relationship. It's building trust. We are that trusted advisor space. Accountants, lawyers, IT service providers, and so I think we've been mindful of that over the last 20 years, and just making sure that that the end user, or the business owner is on board on the journey, and just making sure that we're clear on whether it's the end user experience, the IT systems. It's more about them, rather than us, in my experience. The what we do as far as the tools, etc. I feel that becomes part of the conversation after you've built that original relationship, and really doubling down on why they've picked up the phone in the first place. And it's going to be the same triggers. It's going to be they're either growing, and they've outgrown their existing people, or they've been overpromised and underdelivered.
Yeah, I mean, I had a notepad but I was obviously, as most MSP owners, you do the sales yourself, and I had a notepad, and I remember going through it. It was quite a thick one, so it went back a few years, and I noticed that it's nothing has changed in terms of why customers want to leave.
No.
Has it? Like, and it never has changed. 23 years. Oh, I've outgrown. You were too slow. I just didn't feel like, I feel like we've outgrown you. All those sorts of things.
Yeah.
It was just sort of the same 5 problems they had, and it all related to relationship. But what I observe in the market is most MSPs are running around worrying about their stack. What's my stack? What have I got my stack? I need to get my stack right. It's like, yeah, okay, you do, but that's not what customers care about. And Sam, I think you alluded to something that I've been trying to tell people, is that most MSP owners, because they are technical, and I have to say my brother, who is our CIO, would fall into this trap as well. They think of the technical side and the service delivery outward, not from the customer back, right? Mindset wise, right? Like if you think from a customer, of which Sam and I are non-technical, you customer forward, you start to get in their seat more, and you start to understand that when a uh, client is looking for a new partner, they are essentially looking for a new relationship. They didn't sit there going, "Oh my God, I think we need a new server or a new firewall." No, they got the shits for some reason, and essentially someone got angry. Like then they probably give you 2 or 3 chances, right? Don't they, Sam? Like they'll go, all right, we'll let you off on that one. And then if it's happening too many times, all right, right, I'm done about this. Probably second or third, like they'll start looking, but they're looking because they've lost trust. You're too slow. You're not responsive. You promise something and you don't do it, or you keep making mistakes. But it's not of a large technical nature. It's never because there's been massive downtime or anything like that. Usually, it's to do with relationship. So if it's about relationship, then we should focus on relationship in terms of scaling. And when you start thinking that way, you start to talk differently. Would you agree, Sam? Like that's just the conversation is what you're saying there is it's different when you talk about relationship. Like for example, we don't rush in, maybe explain to the guys, we don't rush in and do an audit straight away. We never do that. So explain maybe just when we get a lead, what do we do on those first couple of steps?
Yeah, I think we try. I mean, you're going through and doing the audit. It's a tool that you may leverage off, and particularly depending on where the client's at in their journey. But yeah, we typically don't do the audit before we engage the client. It's all around the quite often clients are going through that. They've been on an ad hoc system when their bills go up and down. And I find that in that scenario that the actual model is flawed because the client and the IT supplier, there's no skin in the game from both parties. So it's like, okay, the client's happy because they've got someone that they can call in a crisis, and that's typically when they call you in that model. And then from the vendor side or from the MSP side, they're just kind of having to react to all this rubbish because they haven't had the opportunity to bed down the system properly and be proactive and have ongoing checks and balances. So that model to me is a little bit flawed.
Are you talking about break fix? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, like break
Yeah.
fix. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And so quite often, we'll be going through a journey of picking people up that have been on a break fix journey. So that's one type of client. And they're like, oh, my billing's all over the place. And the IT guy's trying to bill me for every half an hour and all that sort of stuff. And he keeps, making the same mistakes and so that just model is a, I understand it for smaller clients. It's a way to get them on board, but at some point you need to flip them over and sell the value of being more proactive. For other clients, yeah, the journey is just about the relationship, and then you've got to be confident on your stack. Don't get me wrong; like you've got to have that 80-20 rule. You've got to get your clients into that suite because otherwise you're monitoring. You can't monitor and manage everything. So I totally get that, but in your sales approach, you don't make a big thing about that from the get-go. Like it's just like, okay, so you've got some antivirus stuff that's, it's still got 6 months on it. In 6 months' time, we'll just review that, and then at that point, you just sell the benefit of the one or two antivirus products that you may have in your stack, and then you just flip it at that point. Because I think any sort of resistance from the selling process from the beginning when you're too focused on your stack, it's just a negative. It's just an opportunity for the client to say no. So I
Yeah,
think
and
if you're in the
I've always
mindset,
I'll jump in and say that is that if I'm right, and I could be wrong, but I don't think so because it's been 23 years, but it is just my opinion. But we believe because it is relationship, if you bring at the start a stack solution discussion too early, now you're creating another thing that that customer has to think about and more things that they can say no about.
I
So
agree.
it's not to say that the audit isn't necessary. It's just our sales process is we get lead, we qualify it over the phone, we then book in our first meeting to present to them, and we have the proposal done and the pricing done. We use good, better, best. That's all done, and then and then if we need to do an audit, we'll do that, and then we'll come back. All right. But
Yeah.
it's because we're focusing on relationship first, which is why they're able to really feel that trust and all those sorts of things. Whereas when you compare that to maybe another approach, which is to come in and get a lead and go, oh, you need help? Okay, I'll come in and do an audit. I'll come in and do an audit. And then you come back with them with the audit results, and the customer's like, whoa, that's because you're thinking from your perspective, or that whoever does it that way is thinking from their perspective, being the IT professional, and not the customer's perspective. Customer looking for a relationship, and you're trying to come at it at that technical perspective. And I think when you talk about thoughts on scaling, that's the difference, a mindset wise, right? If you focus on relationship, you will you will emanate what they're looking for, and lo and behold, conversion is a lot higher. So just bearing in mind, time, we'll move on to the next question, because Sam and I could talk about this stuff forever. So why is customer experience your purple cow, Sam? So we're talking about purple cow. If you're not aware of purple cow, it's a book by Seth Godin, and essentially what he's saying is that when you pitch your IT services, as an example, you're gonna the customer is going to meet Sam, and they're going to meet you and someone else, right? So when you're in that situation, that now think about it from the customer's perspective. They have to decide on which partner is going to be the right partner for them. Now, Seth Godin talks about the fact that you really do need to be a purple cow in this day and age. There's so much messaging, everything seems the same. You need to stand out. So, how on earth are you going to stand out in that sales contest between you, someone else, and Sam, so that that customer kind of goes, whoa, that's different, right? And so there's a lot of different things you can do to be a purple cow. Having something like Invarosoft as a customer experience platform is one of those things, but it's not all of the things. So do you want to dig into the purple cow concept a little bit, Sam? And touch on also how we sort of do focus on CX in that regard, but it's not the only thing.
Yeah, look, I think I call out the water cooler feedback. So most business owners will get to a point where they've got people just coming up to them with noise. This is rubbish. That's not happening. And as systems integrators, I must say it is a challenge for us because we're there to just pull it all together on behalf of the client. It could be the print vendor or the internet provider or whatever, but it's just getting that messaging. And so it starts with the engagement of the end user. And so if you can facilitate an easy flow from the end user with the right information at the right time, and then go through a workflow from there, I think you're already ahead of the game. So I think I do articulate the value of end user engagement because that does resonate quite often, because there's normally some poor admin person that's copying it left, right, and center because they're kind of the central conduit. So in our model, end users contact us directly, and we only escalate to that central conduit within the business. So and you can kind of see, because they're quite often part of the decision making process, they just I go, well, if I could how much time are you spending on IT support now? And they're like, some of them are like 70, 80%, and they're employed as an office manager or something like that. And I go, well, if I could reduce that by half, and you could actually do your job, they're like, oh, fantastic. And so how we do that, using the Invarosoft tools, just to create, just to facilitate, getting that information through, giving the end user experience, making it a lot more seamless is our trick.
But in terms of like I always say to people, okay, your proposal and how you present yourself is a purple cow. In the way
Sure,
that it's presented, like
sure, that's
binding
true.
it, putting it in a folder, and all those sorts of things. Then
Yeah,
you've got the actual proposal itself and the order by which you guide them through. So we implemented the Simon Sinek sell the why, then the how, then the what. And so Sam will talk about the why, which it'd be cool for you to just explain that a little bit because we spent a lot of time on that. And then he gets into the how, right? The how is where you demonstrate your modern service experience and your service delivery methodology, right? So
yes.
it's like, well, instead of doing mouse pads and stickers and phone, we have the app, the client portal, you've got full visibility over your Office 365 reports and device reports, all this sort of stuff. And the client's like, whoa, whoa, it's a purple cow. Now, some people might be using a CX platform in that particular example and not even talking about it in their sales meeting. So if you're using one and you're not talking about it when you're speaking to new customers, that's a mistake, because you've got that opportunity, whether it's us or some other vendor, it doesn't matter. Talk about it, show them how it looks and feels. That's a purple cow. But if we go a step back, in terms of selling the why first, most MSP, so if you think about Simon Sinek, they'll go, Simon Sinek talks about you need to sell like why you do it, and that's what they'll believe in, then the how, then the what. Whereas most salespeople do the reverse. They'll talk about the what first, and then probably maybe touch on the how and not even do the why, right? So we talk about the why in page one almost of the presentation. So when most MSPs come in and they go, oh, so these are your problems. Okay, we do all that. We can do it. Let me show you how we do it, right? And it's more about the what. Like, yes, we're Office 365 experts and we can do internet and we're one-stop shop, whatever, right? They go straight into the what you do. So
Yeah.
Sam, talk about that why page, because I do think that's a big purple cow in the way we present. And the values and all that sort of stuff. So that the values for them and for from us to them, but
Yes.
also that
Yes.
they have to give back. Do you want to just dig into that a little bit? And how that's been working for you?
Yeah, definitely. And that is the consistent feedback I get. So, we have gone through over the last sort of 12 years, we make sure that there are options. We make sure that the client is gauged around those relationship values. So making sure that we're on that journey together. So we do commit to things like peace of mind and business continuity and systems visibility and cost containment being the four values that our clients benchmark us on every 12 months. Every 12 months. That's just our model that we've chosen because we feel that if we've done a good job, we've earned the right to just roll the dice for another 12 months. And on the flip side, it's about making sure that the client commits to understanding our value and investing investing in their IT and making a partnership successful. And so when you have clear goals or values about how we're going to benchmark each other, it's actually quite simple. And the feedback that I get, I do find that the feedback that I get, and I've actually had it this week, is I've done a proposal, gone through our values, gone through their challenges, gone through our sales matrix of good, better, best, and consistently the feedback I get is like, and so by the time you've gone through that process, you've earned the right at the end of the call to say what's standing in the way of moving forward, and 9 times out of 10, because we've given them a great framework and they've been part of that journey, that's where you just get to give them the support plan and sign it.
Yeah, it's pretty funny, and that's the thing. It's kind of like a legal case, right? Like you basically you're whimsically guiding them through this sort of play, this or like a play or legal case or whatever you want. It's like a hybrid of all of it, where you're taking them on this little journey. You're controlling the journey, and by the end of it, we have noticed that 50% of the time they'll just tell you straight up, "Okay, I'm in. This looks good." And you know why they do that? Is because I think when you go and look for some shoes or clothing's probably the best example, where you're trying to find something and then you find it and you're like, oh, thank God, and you boom, it's just instant buy. I don't believe that these small businesses can be bothered going through this process of choosing a new vendor. Like, what a pain in the ass to have to go through that whole process. So when they meet someone that articulates very well and clearly is you're hitting all the pointers in the way they want to learn about your services, that's because we think from their perspective, what do they want to know to make that buying decision? Each sort of like each section of our proposal is like, I know they need to know this. And so we go through it and they're like, oh, I feel so good about it. They actually will say to Sam, oh, I'm in. Like they won't, not all the time, but 50% of the time they
I
will.
just saw
It's crazy.
Mitch. I just saw Mitch post something in the Q&A.
Oh, yep.
So
What
there's
did he
some
say?
chat going on in there. But one of the things he just posted was, yeah, don't get into a race to the bottom. And that's the thing. By presenting, if you are controlling the deal, and you're presenting the good, better, best scenario, then you're almost in competition with yourself because you've engaged the client, you've given them options around good, better, best. And so, um, you know, our learning many years ago was we used to present one option. So we used to go in and perhaps do an audit and say, okay, yeah, based on your feedback, we've worked out what your challenges are. And yes, you need to go and spend 20 or 50K or 100K on X, your servers and UPSs and do it that. And all of a sudden, you've taken away from the support discussion, and you're now getting into a how discussion of how you're going to fix it. So that we were very mindful, probably 12 years ago was our turning point, where we kind of went, well, if we just engage the client, and yes, okay, let's say they need to spend $100,000, but if they spend 15 or 20 of it now and another 30 of it next year and another 50, you've just staged them through. And so by doing it as an option that way, you're not forcing them into $100,000 decision from the get-go. You're massaging it in, so you're happy because you're seeing progress, and the client's happy because they don't feel like they've just had to put their balls on the line for $100,000 or whatever that number is from the get-go, just to fix everything. So I don't know. That was a light bulb moment for us.
Yeah, look, it is interesting. So a couple of these questions in here, so just so we can stay on that topic, so we don't have to wait to the end. So one of them's like, well, if your PowerPoint presentation doesn't have a bunch of stack stuff in it, then what are you talking about? That's a good question. So
It's a
I'll give
great
you a
question.
little snapshot, and Invarosoft partners actually can get a copy of this. But essentially, I don't know what's going on with the font there. Clearly, I need IT support. But remember, I'm in sales, so I know what's going on. But the gist of it is, so this is the overview, and then we get into these values. So
Just
that
maybe
font,
expand it a dash,
yeah,
if
is
you
it
can.
expanding it?
There you go.
There you go. Yeah, I don't know what the deal is with that font, but anyway, so the gist of it is, look at the proposal. That's the CX part of it, and all the other things you do. These are our services. So you just asked us, but if you don't talk about your stack, well, what do you talk? Well, we're explaining what we do. We're a one-stop shop. The point of this page is to say, yeah, we're a one-stop shop. Remember, and end customers come to you, they assume you know what you're doing. They assume you know you can sort it all out. That literally is the extent of their thought process. Like when you go to a mechanic for your car, you're not worrying about their stack. You just want to get your car fixed. And you go to the mechanic because he knows what he's doing and he's got his stack, whatever the heck that is, all the tools that he uses, literally. And you as the buyer just go there and they get it sorted, right? Remember, they are non-technical who you're selling to most of the time. So mentioning what you do, broadly speaking, is all you need to do. Most proposals I see go on and on and on about the technology. You don't need to. You want to talk more about your clients. You want to talk more about having some reference clients in there. You want to talk about your team. You want to talk about the good, better, best proposal. You want to talk about solution builder. So this is an example. This is an example of where we do a good, better, best approach with our vCIO QBR process, right? So you have an example of it in here, and this demonstrates your technical acumen and awesomeness. I don't need to go on and on about Microsoft and all these other stack things because they're just getting the gist in their mind. Oh, that's how you're going to build out the solution. You clearly know what you're doing. I'm in. You just, if you're worried about whether they think you know what you're doing or not, then that's the thing. But you don't need to put in the stack to do that. So if we move on to the next question in terms of sales tactics to win new clients, and I'll just minimize that so we can bring it back if we need to. So Sam, hopefully that answers your question, Dan. So what is the difference between about your MSP versus the other? I suppose we we are guiding the customer through a different conversation. That's the difference. That is the difference. Like, and the way we talk about it is so different that that's where they walk away thinking you're different. But are we actually different? No. Like, no, of course we're not any different. We do exactly the same as you do, but we're whimsically convincing them by the way we're articulating that we're way different and we're more modern because I'm talking their language. I'm not talking MSP traditional language. And Sam obviously is doing most of that. So hopefully that answers your question there, Dan. And we'll get to a couple of the other questions as well. Many MSPs are using the audit thing. I think the idea is to educate the client, create a gap. Yes, you can do that, but and that's Dan as well. You can, but that's not why they're looking for a new partner. That is one of the tactics. The audit and finding gaps is one of the tactics just to slam dunk it home for them to choose you. But
Yeah.
I can guarantee that Sam will and I will beat you if that's all you talk about. right? Because we'll also talk about that. Of course, we'll find those things, but
Yeah.
we can sign that client up without even having to do the audit. Now, that's lessened. Sam will say to me, no, that's lessened now, and it has. We still need to come back to them with what we're recommending, but our methodology of coming back to them using good, better, best will trump your one option approach. Not you, I'm just saying generally as an MSP. Most MSPs do one option, right? And we'll trump you because we'll go, oh no, but the client likes to see that there's options and they can be guided through that process. So Sam, do you want to dig into that? It's a good question. Dan says like, yeah, but you're just the same. Like, how is this any different? My argument is, of course, it's the way we're articulating. It's the story we're guiding them through. It's talking about values first, talking about customer experience and these sort of things. What are your thoughts around the sales tactics side of things and how we are going to beat
Yeah, so
the
to Dan's
traditional way
point,
of articulating?
yeah,
Yeah.
and to Dan's point, you just touched on it. Like the sales cycle has changed in the last 5 years. Like people do, they do want to know what they're up for. So they do want a sense of it. So not saying that audits don't exist and but I think you're right. It is just to slam dunk someone. And we'll typically only, so when a client goes out to market, they'll make 2 or 3 phone calls. And I'm clear. I'm like, look, if you're still looking at 5 vendors, once you get down to two, if eNodes is in the top two, sure, I'll come and do an audit. I'll come and and then just give you that final peace of mind just to go through our 20-point check. So that's just what Jamie showed there before. It is like it is like going to get your car service. Your tires, your windows, all that sort of stuff, and we just go through the same 20-point check that you would. Whether you articulate it that way, I don't know, but that's exactly how I articulate it, and just say, okay, and so what are we doing for either servers? And let's agree we're not doing that as much as we used to. So it's files and folders, it's where your email, it's cybersecurity, and just going through, and you might bring in some more stuff about cybersecurity and whether it's the Essential 8 or some of the US type tools, so that you've got a framework, and then you get the opportunity to kind of say, well, look, this is where the market's going. You're kind of here, and this would be your journey. Just taking them on that. And so, yeah, what Jamie's showing now, the vCIO tool, is just like critiquing. You've said this is rubbish. Well, actually, based on our audit, yes, we agree because it's 7 years old and it's XYZ or not configured properly, whatever it is. So that just gives you again, it's all about engaging the client so that by the end of it, you've earned the right to go, are we on the dance floor? And that's really all you're after. It's just picking out those points to be to be given that opportunity to say, righto, let's go.
And
And
good, better,
calls to
best
action.
enables you to do that because essentially
Mhm.
you're not playing your hand on price. I say this over and over again that when you give a customer, even if it's support, or if it's with your recommendations of your audit. So you come in, you're trying to find the gaps, great. If you come into a small business and say, I found all the gaps, I'm the trusted advisor, it's $25,000 to solve your problems. The customer can only say in that situation with one option, yes, no, or go dark.
Yeah,
They literally cannot be engaged. Don't you agree, Sam? Like they just
yeah,
shut
yeah.
down almost.
That
It's
was
like,
our
oh
learning.
shit,
We made
because
that mistake.
they don't know how to negotiate with you. Some will, your CFO type people will potentially, but so many people are like, well, I'm not qualified. I don't know. It's 25 grand or nothing. Like, what do I do? And we had a couple of clients go to market and
Yeah,
actually just wanted to get another quote, and then that MSP went, I can do it cheaper, of course, because they basically just gave them the quote, and then they got the support and everything else. So it was just we were like, okay, this just doesn't work. So
correct.
doing good, better, best is about saying, well, it could be 11 grand, it could be 25, or it could be 45. And 45 makes 25 look more affordable. I won't go into that too much. That's another webinar. But the fact is, that's a sales tactic for beating people, even in the new business process. Because when they'll say to you, well, how are you going to come back to me when Sam meets
Yeah,
them? And
I,
having the example of a solution builder, which is what we call this good, better, best approach in the IT services proposal, enables that customer to go, oh, I get it. You're going to come back to me like this. Because what you sales tactics want to do to win clients is to get the buyer in the mindset of already having bought. And so giving them an indication of what it'll look like after they've said yes, and the
yeah,
QBR, TBR approach of how you come back to them with with your recommendations is an example of that. Your thoughts, Sam? Sorry, you.
I'm
Yeah.
just there's a great so Dan has actually said, just doubling down on that, where was it? Clients, wanting that sense. So, in our presentations, we talk about, let's just pick on antivirus as an example. Like, we do good, we do two or three options, and it's again, there's like
I'll bring it up. I don't know what the deal is with that text, but oh, here we go. It's changed. It must be a
there's
font thing.
there's an entry level, option, there's a mid range, and so if you're
Oopsies.
talking
This
to,
one.
yeah,
This
so
one.
you think about, so just say you've got a financial services client, that's engaged with you, and they don't know, they don't know what they need to know, right? They just know that they're having a poor experience. So rather than saying, we lead with X vendor, which is what the vendors want us to do. The vendors are all about, lead with our product because we're awesome. But,
It's just trying to sell their product.
yeah,
Honestly.
Johnny, the accountant, he doesn't care what brand it is. He just knows that if you've articulated as part of your review. So if you scroll down, Jamie,
Yeah.
um,
Are you talking about vCIO or?
no, just talking about,
Yeah.
like all the, like, cloud security, like managed endpoint, So in fact, what you want to do is you want to do price bands. So that's actually an old proposal.
Yeah, we don't do
Now,
that anymore. Yeah.
yeah, now we would actually have $3 to $5 or $3 to $7. And so by doing price bands, you've given them a feel for it, but again, they have options around how, like, do they want MDR? Do they want encryption? Do they want, and so using that as just one line item I've picked out, and you could go through all of them. It's just about having that mentality of, look, you've got nothing. So, if you go from zero to hero, all of a sudden you've just blown out their cost by, X amount, right? And you're just trying to have a support
Yeah, I'll
conversation of,
jump in there,
hang on,
Sam. Yeah, yeah, go for it.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
so by just having that sort of, if you're on zero, but look, let's just take phase one, and that's going to give you this quick win. And then over the next 12 months, we can mature that score over a 12-month. That's what I'm finding clients are resonating with.
Right, this solution builder approach. Now, it is interesting, and look, Dan's given quite a lengthy question there, and he's probably freaking out staring at our pricing, because he's like, "But my good starts at $240 a month," and you can see there that ours is only 55.95, and like, well, you got to add it all up, right? So essentially,
I
but
think
that
I,
is the per user cost, right?
yeah,
And so essentially, Dan, there's two thought processes here about how you go to market. And so when you want to, we are here in this webinar to tell you some sales tactics and what we do differently. This is worth spending 2 minutes on, right? Most MSPs have been coached to bundle stack in their support plan offering. It makes sense to a technical founder. It's like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, we are selling all this stuff and I need to get this in place because that's like my go to market. Like, I'm going to put this endpoint protection in, and I'm this sort of the cybersecurity stack and all this other. Great. Awesome. However, as I said before, if I'm right, and I think I am, that the buyer just wants a relationship, why on earth would I put all of that technical stack in my support plans when actually the fat and the money that I make is just by signing up them as a client on support in that sense, right? So you can do it, but the downside of doing it that way, where you come across, firstly, you're at $240 a user, and my MSP, arguably, I don't know how big you are, but we're at 10 mil, as you know, maybe we come across cheaper. Now, we won't be cheaper, will actually be the same price or more or whatever than you are, but it appears that way because the difference that we do is we sell support plans first, and stack comes later as part of the good, better, best thing, right? We don't bundle products in our plans. The only difference, look at the size of this table. It's huge. But honestly, the difference between the three, the only difference between these three is that this one doesn't have on-site support. You got to buy a support pack. This one, which is closely priced deliberately, has unlimited on-site support and unlimited phone. First one, unlimited phone only. And the third one's 24/7. That's pretty much the difference between those three plans, right? Customers go, oh, I don't want to spend the third one because it's too expensive. And then Sam's like, okay, well, what are you thinking, like silver or gold? But then you can start to negotiate. But we're support only. We don't have stack. We will eventually get it up to $250 per user, but we do it as a phase 2 thing. And the model works really well. So is your goal, and this will be the worry that MSPs have, oh, but if I don't do it right at the start, they may not buy it. I've never seen that. Sam, would you agree? We
Never happened.
always sell the stuff we need to sell, don't we?
Yeah,
Like
always.
our
Yeah.
stack always gets put in place. But what do you want? Are you more fearful of getting, I'm not talking to you specifically, Dan, I'm talking to just anyone watching this webinar, is that, do you want to just be so tight and get everything correct the way you want it in your stack? Or do you want the customer? Because in my view, I just want to grow the business. I just want the customer. Sam, what are your thoughts on that commentary? Because
Yeah. Well, yeah.
95% of
Yeah.
MSPs are putting stack in there,
No,
and eNerds does not.
I think Dan's right. It does end up being $200 a user. But, looking at our support there, once you've bundled support, user support and networking and blah, blah, blah. So our typical from a support perspective works out between about $120 a month, right? That's kind of a benchmark from a support. And then you're right. Then you've got your Office 365, 30, 40, $50 a month on top of that. They're 150. Then you got your other bells and whistles around that. So yeah, Dan, I think our pricing is similar. It's just that we're not coming out of the gates going, it's $240. That's we've made that choice. We've spoken about it at length, and yeah, and I do listen in on a lot of the vendor conversations, and I am seeing the vendors are trying to push us down that way. I don't agree with it. So, and
Yeah,
and
and
and I
but
find
the
that
the
yeah,
reason is we believe if a customer is looking for a relationship, then have a relationship discussion and price your services around relationship.
yeah,
If you do stack and relationship, meaning support and your stack in your support plans, then you have to now talk about the two things. So straight out of the gate, and then deciding on you as the partner,
yeah,
they're now having to also decide whether or not you have the right technical solution in there. So Mitch, hi, how are you, mate? Good to have you on this chat. So Mitch has had a few questions too, and he's like, but why do you not like the idea of one flat rate for the whole company? We did it for a decade, Mitch. A decade we did that. Now you can sell any way you want. Sam, agreed. You can sell whichever way you want, right?
I agree. Yeah,
And you will sell. But here's the example I always give. And look at it, look at the table here. I'll increase the size a bit. When we did one option, which is what you're talking about, Mitch, I was going in. It was before Sam, and it was after Sam. We both together figured out let's go good, better, best. But um, I was doing one option, and to be fair, Sam would have been doing that at the start too before we
I
changed
was.
it.
Yeah.
And so when you do one options, let's focus on silver support. I go in at and just use the user price for now, right? Just focus on that number, $55 a month. At 55, it's all you can eat. That is our engagement. That's it, right? You get everything. It's just the only difference will be how many users you're charging, right? So let's think of a 40-seat company, 40 times 55, and then you go in there and their customers like, mm-hmm, okay. They can't negotiate, but what can they negotiate? The only thing they can negotiate on is what, Sam, in that scenario?
Well, the feedback would be like, I really like what you're presenting here, but can we make it a bit cheaper?
Can we make it cheaper? But that's because that's the only thing they can negotiate on is price. All right. So what I ended up doing was I was doing deals at $45 just to get them across the line. When I went to good, better, best, long story short, I just went, well, 55 is what I always wanted anyway. So I'll put that as the first one. I just made up 65 and then made up 80. And then essentially what ended up happening was we started doing all the deals at $65 purely because I laid it out a different way. It
Yeah,
enables a buyer to choose something, Mitch.
because
And
they don't want to
buyers
be
don't
they don't
like
want to be
being put
seen to
into a
be
yes or
cheap.
no proposition. Yeah, and plus it makes 55 seem cheap. Like 80 makes 55 seem more affordable. Whereas when it's only 55, they have no context. So Mitch, the reason you would do this is to get buyers, firstly, to get buyers to make buying decisions faster. Secondly, and incidentally, I wish I was smart at the time. Sam and I did not know this, but it's a retrospective thing. You actually end up selling it at a higher rate, accidentally just by purely laying it out that way, right? It's actually quite hilarious. So it's all about presenting in a way where a customer can buy and choose to buy rather than being sold to. And there is a massive psychological difference between someone saying yes and no and being sold to with their arms crossed versus someone leaning in, Literally, Sam, would they not rub their chin as they and point when they're going through it with you, the plan? Much different buying psychology there. So the person that's actually choosing is more likely to make that buying decision quicker. If it's yes or no, it's like, well, you're really having to really try and squeeze them to make that deal. Would you agree, Sam?
Yeah, you're preaching to the converted here. So, and just in Dan's thing where he says, how do you do it in a way that doesn't feel like bait and switch? It's definitely not bait and switch, because I think you're right. I think, 10 years ago, we would just focus on support, and then we'll go, we'll work everything out. And that worked. That worked for many years. But like I said, in the last 5 years, clients do want to know what their end goal is. So, I set off the other day with a client. I said, look, it'll probably end up costing you. I said the industry standard is probably somewhere between $150 and $200 a month, and this is how we break it down. So I talked about desktop support being $60-$70 a month. Those prices are a little bit out of date, and then went through networking, etc. So it did end up costing that. And
But
then
it was
you've got
still only support though, and it didn't have the stack in there, so it's always going to be cheaper than someone
and that's right.
throwing
And
in
then you
stack,
just
stack,
add
stack.
your Microsoft user amount per month and any other incidentals around it. So yeah, look, it's definitely not bait and switch. It's taking the client on a journey. If you go in too high, too fast, and too technical, in my opinion, you lose your audience. That's my opinion. Stay at their level, stay grounded, and just keep chipping away. And then what starts as a 1,000, 2,000. Yes, it does increment, and they don't begrudgingly do it because they're engaged in that conversation. It's like, out of the box, this is what you'll get with your Microsoft bits and pieces or Google or whatever it is. But as you show more value, whether look at it from a compliance or cybersecurity, everything's another $5, another $10, but they've been engaged on that journey. So look, it is working well for us. And again, because we're staying true to the original brief, which is I've got the shits, I've been let down, I've overgrown my incumbent, and I just want to partner with someone that's going to take me on the journey for the next 3 to 5 years. So
Correct.
that's
And so well said. And I think we've got the quote of the webinar in that last little spiel you gave there, Sam. So I have to suck that one out of there and put it somewhere in big commas. But Dan's going, look, I challenge you only because I'm interested really to find a detail of it. After selling them the package, it usually takes us years. How do you manage to upgrade them? Okay,
ah
Dan, don't worry, because it's not about that, right? It's not about having to upgrade them. You only think that way if the first plan you've got is not the one you wanted on. Remember, this is the one I wanted them on in the first place. Anything above that is a bonus. Who
yeah.
cares? It's not about upgrading them. It's about getting the customer, because that is more important. So if I bring it back to actually the metrics and the things that I wanted to dig in a bit, we've run out of time a little bit, of support. Our MSP is the size that it is, but it means that we have to sign up between $40,000 to $50,000 a month of monthly support over a 12-month period. By the end of that 12 months, Sam's got to hit that number. If he doesn't hit the number, when you factor in churn, then so we do about 250,000 or 265.70 a month in support only, right? And if you churn 10% of that, which we don't, but if you did, and this is what you base your metrics on, that's about 25 grand a month of 10% dollar churn. So you got to base your growth on that. So if I was to churn 25 grand, you've got to hit 40 to 50 just to keep going. It's more about getting clients on board than it's worrying about upgrading them specifically. Make sure you're charging them correctly, apples with apples, the number of devices. This is just a way to get the customer on board. And if they happen to spend 65 bonus, if they happen to spend 80 bonus, but you build your business metrics around the first package and it just flows from there. So no matter which one they choose, you don't really care. You move on, sign up the new client and move on with your life. So why do you, with the support only plans, I just don't get how. So in terms of the other stuff, so when you're talking about the managed services, that will just come. That will just come because they're like, okay, cool, I'll just
Well,
follow your
that's
lead. When
what
you present,
vCIO does. That's what vCIO does,
correct.
but it's not talking about. It's not all it's talking about is in an IT network you need 10 things. And again, you're not talking about the solution itself. You're just filling a gap in this stack here. So you
Correct.
need internet. Is your internet too slow? Do you need to upgrade it? Do you need backup? How's that backed up? So, and again, you're not limiting yourself. I just find it a very limiting conversation when you go in too quick, too hard, because you can actually, in our experience, I actually end up selling them more because they're engaged, they're on the journey.
Yeah.
And yes, it might take me 6 months. So that first 6 months is really important. But that's why if you come back to the original values of the client being on this journey, understanding our value and investing in IT, I actually say to them in the first meeting, if you are not on this journey, do not choose us.
Yeah.
It's easy.
And it's one of the values as well you say at the start, mate. It's remember Sam talked about, hey, there's 3 values, Mr. Customer, Mrs. Customer, you need to give us. You need to understand our value, you need to be willing to make a partnership successful, and you need to be willing to invest in your IT. If they say no to that, it's like, well, I don't think this is going to work. And it's a challenger selling technique, I have to say. It's
Yeah.
amazing. So it's one of the sales tactics. And it puts them on the back foot going, well, yeah, no, we will invest. Like, good, you should, because if you don't, we can't solve your problems. And so the reality is, we can't say much more on this other than to say it works a treat. They buy everything we tell them to buy for the most part. And the example is that our monthly support is about 260, 70 grand a month, whatever it is. And our managed services, which is the stuff you're talking about, is of the same amount. And we direct debit it all. So we're at like 500 grand a month of them just direct debiting all this stuff. So Sam will sell just as much and get it all across the line, get cybersecurity across the line. It's just understanding, do you want the customer or are you worried so much about stack? Get the customer and have a nice process using good, better, best you see here with such as an example with the vCIO tool of Invarosoft to present it in a way where they're like, cool, I'm choosing to buy, I'll get that option, sweet, that all sounds good. They'll just do it because you are their trusted advisor. And that's what Sam's saying. If you have their trust, they will go on the journey, they will invest. If they're not investing and they're not buying, they're the wrong customer. You just don't need to do it right at the start. I think building an MSP is more important to just get the client first and move on. If you're worrying about that, most MSPs, guys, just to wrap this webinar up, 80% are below 3 million in revenue and 60% are below 1 million in revenue. So I know this for a lot of you will be hard to take. This is why, because everyone's doing it the same way and they're struggling to scale because their sales methodology is technical, not in the way that the buyer's wanting to do it. Right. So Sam will continue to destroy. So just the final question there. And I think we've kind of got to the crux of it. Why do we keep beating MSPs? I would say, and I'll leave you to have the last word, Sam. My word would be is because we're looking at it differently. Everything we've just explained to you, which is hard for you to take, is why we beat you. Right? Because we're coming at the whole thing at another angle. The entire MSP market, arguably, or most, because of the stats, are coming at it from the traditional approach: sell stack, bundle stack, don't talk about relationship, only talk about what you do. We talk about why, we talk about relationship. We don't really spend a lot of time talking about stack at all. We show them solution builder, we use solution builder, we do good, better, best. We don't do so. We're the anomaly, we're the outlier. eNerds is the outlier in our approach. That's why I think we beat them. Sam, any thoughts on that? You have the
No, I
last word on
think
that one.
no. And it's I think definitely I want to have a beer with Dan. It's 6 o'clock your time, so I think it's beer o'clock. And it's not. Look, I'm not. This is not a. This is just our way. So we've thought about it intensely. And I do believe that the vendors are the Church of Microsoft, the Church of Google, all it's very like the way that they sell is fantastic. But you do have to look at your business, your clients, and I think for me, what I try and do from the get-go is to sit side by side with them. And if you're having a side-by-side conversation, you're way more engaged. If you're having a conversation across the bench, you're always going to be trying to prove, disprove, and so I don't have those challenges because we're buddying up. Hey man, and let's dance, and they're on that journey. And it's not that we're not giving them visibility. So just to clarify that, we are giving them visibility, but we're doing price bands. We're not locking ourselves into a fixed do it, don't do it conversation. We're like, you can start at $3. It might head up towards $10 per month for this one widget, whatever it is. But really, that's going to, if you go in too high, too hard, too soon, you've lost them. And so,
Yeah, and it's not about the worry seems to be, oh, but we're not the security partner. That other statement there, dude, we've been their security partners for 23 years. They
yeah,
get
yeah.
that. It is that concept of the mechanic. They get it. They know you do all of that stuff. That's why they're coming to you, and they just want another partner that knows all that stuff that will guide them on the journey. It's not like they don't care about any of that sort of stuff. So
I just want a law firm. I just want a
yeah,
law firm. And they were just being shoved cyber and security down their throat. And I just presented it so much simpler for them and they chose us. So it's
yeah.
not that we don't do that. We just do it in a side by side manner.
Yeah, and the good, better, best is a big part of that. So hopefully all of those points help you. And I know it is it's just a different perspective and it's outlier. It's why with the webinar we didn't get a million people join it, because they're just people aren't thinking that way. They don't want to do it. But we will record this and send it out the door because it is a perspective that the market needs to understand. We're genuinely trying to help you guys succeed and grow. And it kind of annoys me that the market is being pushed a certain direction to sell a certain way, and all the coaches do it that way. A lot of them will even just do one option, which blows my mind, and they're coaching you to do it. But I won't begrudge it because they're actually trying to help you and coach, etc. But please understand that vendors will be laughing behind the scenes at how much they've convinced MSPs to bundle their products. Like, what a freaking sales tactic to convince a whole industry that they have to do this to get a client is somewhat hilarious. If you were sitting in the sales meetings of a vendor, they would all be giggling and laughing because they're like, that was our tactic was to use the channel. We got them, the MSP, so scared that they have to bundle it, to sell their services. No, they don't. I will sell all that same stuff, but I'll do it on my terms. Sam will do it on his terms, and we'll do it on the client's terms. We won't do it on the vendor's terms. All right. So don't listen to vendors as the be all and end all of how to sell managed services, because the crux of a managed service is your support. That's where you make your money, is the support line. The other stuff comes at what, Sam? 20, 30% margin. Who gives a shit about that stuff? The margin is the support,
It
and the
adds
other
up. Don't
stuff
get me
is that we're
wrong. It's
fries with that.
nice.
Well, true. But my point is that
It's our with
that's the with
fries. It's
fries
our
with
with
that.
fries.
That's
Yeah,
the with
yeah.
fries. But don't let vendors tell you that they're the main game. They're not the main game. They're the entree. And Sam and I went out for Japanese the other day and we had some amazing entree. But anyway, they're food for thought. So look, if you're interested in the Invarosoft platform, it's an easy 3-step process. We'll help you with this sales process, with differentiating yourself, with this the QBR vCIO process, all of that stuff. Book a demo. And then if you like it, we'll set up a trial. It takes 30 minutes and then you can decide what you want to do. And if you want to book a demo, go to envirosoft.com/book demo. Sam, thank you so much. I've always wanted to have you on a call like this. As I say, it'll go out into the ether on YouTube, and hopefully will help people just with a different mindset around how to grow, scale an MSP, and some of the sales tactics involved. So firstly, thank you for being on the eNerds journey for so long. I just am deeply appreciative of that. But thank you for coming on today's webinar and sharing your thoughts today.
Yeah, no, great. And thanks for being engaged. There's been some terrific questions, and I think hopefully we've just given some perspective. So thank you.
All right. Well, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much, guys. Take care. We wish you continued success, and we'll see you in the next webinar.